This track is called Known Shape. It's a song from my album Landscape from Memory, in which I tried to explore a heavily syncopated, almost mechanical rhythm. And I'd like to basically walk through the song and look at various things that are going on that I think are interesting. This is just a very small intro, and you can tell straight away that there is a lot of syncopation happening. There's a heavy emphasis on a kind of staccato rhythm. The drums alone are actually quite rhythmic. I'll just show that. So there's a kind of mechanical switch thing going on here that I recorded quite a few years ago. And the beauty is that when you turn a rotary switch, you naturally get this kind of almost like a drum fill rhythm that's going on. And I find that really useful because that makes me want to explore similar things in the synths. In a way, everything is kind of centered around this rhythm that happens at the beginning. And I will show, for example, this is just a single note that is working between those drum rhythms. Even the sustained chords that exist throughout the music, they're also gated and have a very staccato rhythm. So if we look at this chord progression that emerges, we can see the gating that's been triggered from this rhythm here. As you can tell, it is sustained, just played in live on the Rev 2 through some pedals. The gating is giving everything this rhythmic quality. Very simple, just using Ableton stop plugins. There's obviously quite a lot of EQ going on here, and also even Ableton amp, which is quite an extreme effect, which I find sometimes is nice to create a very bright, overly bright kind of energy, which seems to work on this particular instance. I'll just move forward and show how many sounds there are in this in terms of a kind of like rhythmic articulation. This is kind of in between sections, but there's a feedback here. There is also this single note, again, lots of single notes. And that gives way to a new ingredient that enters the mix, which is basically these delays, which I find really interesting. So that is simply just Echo Boy and a little bit of the delay in Ableton, but a very extreme feedback. So you end up getting almost like a continued delay that passes through different chord changes. But just these elements alone achieve quite a lot of momentum pushing forward. this kind of church organ section here where everything descends, and we return to a much more epic chord progression, which actually is the verse section but chopped up. The way that I've done this is I've kind of revealed a small amount of the image, and then when we get to the chorus, as it were, it reveals the entire progression, which is a kind of a simple thing that you can do that you can often overlook. You know, instead of revealing everything immediately, you can just reveal tiny elements. I'll just show these layers for that there. So you can tell just by listening to this chorus section how many intricate parts are kind of weaving in and out of each other. And it's just a kind of obsession really, just to have lots of kind of elements of staccato, and they're exchanging and going between each other. But then obviously in moments they play at the same time. I just find this, you can do so many things with that, because there aren't actually many things being played here at once, but it creates complexity purely because of the rhythm here. This then quickly dies down because this song is extremely dynamic. So we arrive at this kind of chorus section, as it were, but then we quickly evaporate into nothing. I'll show that. Again, there's a lot of ambient, almost feedback-like tones, such as this. And even that's actually being gated rhythmically, so it has a tiny sensation of rhythm. In the mix, you kind of perceive it as a droned single note, but there's a lot of attention to rhythmic qualities throughout. If we also go to this ambient layer, which is actually made using Omnisphere, very thin sort of ambient supporting layers that exist in the background of the music. I'm especially into this thing that I made, which is just 2 notes, but it was made with the chroma console and a kind of wobbly tape sort of effect that's going on here. But for some reason, this little motif really makes so much sense to me within the music, because it acts almost like a comma in the music that allows it to move forward but punctuates a certain moment in time. That instance at the beginning is a little bit more attacky. But yeah, I like these kind of very simple motifs that occur, and there is again a little bit of feedback before that. I never really have just a single thing. There's often a supporting part that leads into the kind of focus, as it were. And you can tell here that there's a lot of metallic, unusual drums that are going on. They're actually baked into this drum mix. But that was played with my hands using fabric that creates a very dampened cymbal quality. I'll just isolate that and show that. Just a completely offbeat rhythm. Again, it's quite, that's almost like a kind of digital snare type thing going on here. There's a kick there as well, but really it's kind of almost one ingredient, I think, that's just changing quite a lot. I'm not even sure how I made that. But these two together I think are really interesting. Lots of kind of energy building here with something like this. A single note that's quite fuzzy, but we've also got these things happening as well. Very simple things. They're kind of all playing a single layer, and there is some noise here as well. Just to create a little bit of chaotic energy that then immediately is resolved to almost nothing. And then the song completely changes here. We have a section which is a little bit more mellow, but there's a kind of call and response going on here where we have a kind of simple chord progression that then has a kind of response, which is this very unusual, gritty, it's hard to explain really, it's kind of like multiple things happening at once, but very filtered. I'll just try and show that now. And together we get this. And as you can tell, this just becomes thinner and thinner. I like the idea of taking elements and just making them a lot smaller. And I often use band passing for this, just simply removing the high frequencies and the low frequencies to create a very kind of boxy and small version of things. We just have an isolated kick drum here that just adds so much force against this very small layer. You have these like impactful moments. And that is basically the entirety of the track. It's something that will be extremely fun to play with live. You can just simply play with so many different ingredients in different ways and you'll get interesting patterns that emerge. It doesn't have to conform to this structure as well.